Hello, everyone. Welcome to today, March 3rd, Level Up Together. And I'm going to share the screen here. So today our topics is again healing attitudes, but there's a lot of good stuff here. So the more we talk about it, the deeper we can get into it. And before we start, just a little disclaimer that this meeting is being recorded. By participating, you are giving me the consent to record you, and it will be shared on the Utaptics groups via YouTube or replays. You can watch the replays, or people who cannot join us together, they can watch the replay. And I'm a level 4 practitioner. Here as your host, and everyone's insights, perspectives, experiences, examples on the topics are valuable, and we are helping each other grow and create a mutual space of learning and growth. So with that said, let's get started. So we are on page 130 for me. It might be 131 for you, or 129, somewhere around there. Healing attitudes, and we are on number 18. So in the level 1 book, so as you guys open it up, who would like to read first? You guys have just jump in. Hey, Susan, go for it.
All right. So we're on 18, number
Hmm.
18? Okay. Your brain will operate all by itself, or you can take control of it since it is yours. Are we taking it point by point?
Yeah, let's just do it point by point. And would you like to share anything about that?
Yes, this is so true. The brain learns and it breathes us, it digests our food. Once we learn something, it just keeps going. We go on autopilot and it kind of runs our life unless we take note and take control as we're being taught to do in this program. So it's really amazing that if we do nothing, we keep being flowing along in the stream of life and things seem like they're happening to us. And then when we take control, then we can maneuver, navigate our way through the stream of life rather than just kind of flowing with it.
That's a good metaphor. That's really a good metaphor. Thank you, Susan. I love it. Yeah. Anybody else would like to share anything on brain? Or we can take control. Any insights, examples? Yeah.
It
And
ju-
also, like, go ahead.
oh no, it just reminds me of a paper that I was reading, and it was talking about how, um, and I think this has gone up depending on the studies, but this particular reading talks about like 65% of the decisions that you make aren't conscious. So it's like some things it's like you'll do automatically. And then so that only means that you have 35% that are conscious, right? And so how do you make that 35% influence the whole as opposed to having that 65% influence that 35% of what you have, right? And it's a constant, fighting against your habits, I guess you could say. What are the things that you have already accepted and don't question and run your life, as opposed to, stopping, looking at things and being like, all right, this was good for me 5 days ago, but is it good for me now? You know?
Yeah. It'll be interesting, like, kind of write down all the decisions you're making, or thinking about, like, which one is conscious and which one is not conscious. Because the unconscious ones we can't think. We don't think about them, right? But we are doing them anyway.
Right, exactly.
So just analyzing, bringing them to the conscious. Yeah, interesting. All right. Who would like to read the next one? Number 19. Right.
Well, now that I'm reading it, I don't know if I want to. You are what you experience, and how you perceive and maintain that experience. Oh, okay. That's kind of a slap you in your face piece of information. I mean, um, there's some things I've experienced I certainly do not want to. Yeah. Okay. I don't want to be that experience.
Right. That's interesting, huh?
Yeah, it is. And now we have tapping, so we can get rid of it, maybe. If we do it long enough and hard enough and live long enough. No, it's okay. I get it. I get it because it really is. I mean, the things you experience, you always kind of reflect, good or bad, those experience, I believe. But yeah. So
Yeah.
I guess it's best as you go through life to always perceive being happy. And even when things happen that are like, oh, I hate that. We can tap away those feelings and then try to feel better about them. Did I make any sense? Because I've been standing outside all day waiting for a bus, so I don't know if my brain is fried or frozen. Okay. Scusa, I will
No,
not speak anymore. Okay.
you can definitely speak, please. I love your insights, Sherry. But yeah, it makes sense, you know? It just kind of hit me. It would be a good sticky note to put on, make and put it on our mirror. You are what you experience, because we forget that and we start blaming the world about it. But it all starts inside. Yeah. Anyone else? Any insights? Jason, you got your camera on.
It's working now.
Awesome. Hey,
I,
Jeanette, long time no see.
Yeah.
I've got an insight about that.
Please, we would
I
love to
read
hear it.
I read a quote this morning that kind of put things a little interesting thought in my head that was life is not happening to you, it's happening through you.
Oh,
And
hmm.
so I thought that that really applied well to this tapping situation. It's not all these things happening to us, it's things are happening through us. And once we understand that they're happening through us, we are the ones that are controlling them. So we can use the tapping or many other things that we can do. But tapping is like so fast and so easy way to instantly affect what's happening through us instead of being in the illusion that we're being victimized, like in the lower model of the world. It's happening through us, not to us. So I thought that was pretty interesting today.
Like that a lot. Definitely. Yeah. That's very deep, like if you all think about it, it's happening through us. And then there's no blame. There's no blame. We can just take, yeah, it sounds like Tony Robbins.
It
And
was
we can,
from the Kabbalion, the Hermetic
from the,
principles of the Kabbalion.
is that a book? The,
Yeah, uh, it's basically it's known by a lot of different things, but the it's an audio about the Kabbalion. It's about like ancient wisdom type of thing.
I like it. I'll check it out. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, there's no blame. It's just happening through us and what we are allowing and what we can take responsibility for and take ownership for. Yes, thank you. All right, anyone else? And who would like to read the next point? If there's so Jeanette, we are on, and Rendell, welcome. We are on about page 30, 31, 130, around page 130 in the level one, the healing attitudes, and we are stepping into the point number 20 now. Who would like to read the next point? You can read it. Number 20, your happiness comes from the level of control that you have internally. So, yeah, the control we can have internally, because there could be just too much chit chat going on inside our head, keeping us in not a happy place. And all the voices of others and our own, judgments or resentment or what's right, what's wrong, this should be and that should be, and we kind of like let go of our happiness. So, or we are not holding on to what's the true happiness, just being in the moment. So the level of control we have over our happiness or over our ourselves internally. And as Robert says, tapping is just a coping mechanism, just to cope through that and just get out of that situation. Hey, Sasha.
It's funny because it's like right now I'm taking a class on writing research paper, but it's like they're really focusing on the visual aspects of it. And so one of the books that we read talks about the visual process. So it's not just biological, but all of the different components that go into it. And so like the next three, I could see how they like really tap into what seeing actually is. Because like the brain doesn't actually see in photography. It sees in sketches. So it like sketches what it is that it's seeing. And then it takes the mind on putting in and building the pieces of that visual thing that it saw to make it fit to an idea or a focus that you have. So if you're focusing on something, that sketch is going to be taken and your mind is going to fill in the gaps of all of the different things that you believe. So based on what you believe is what you see. And so it's not just a clear cut, oh, okay, here's a picture and you're seeing all of the truth. In reality, no, your brain is just making these sketches up really quickly and you're filling in those gaps. So, there's also something called like mirror neurons. So this is where we get, our ability to empathize, right? And so it's like if they are unchecked, you can, be absorbing all of, sadness, anger, all of these things. But if you have them under check, I mean, if you discipline, I guess, your mirror neurons, I guess you could say, I guess you can have more happiness because you're training them to focus on happiness as opposed to focus on the other things that they're seeing in their environment. So again, it's really interesting how this is going with my class right now.
So cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
I think it's Mirnov, How You See the World. And it goes through this whole explanation of psychology, sociology, like all of the different components that go into what you're seeing. And it also discusses like neuroscience and how those processes affect what you see. So it's a really good book. I highly recommend it.
It's called Myrna, Mirna.
Let me get that right. I'll put it in the description right now when I find
Definitely. That is
yeah.
so neat. Like the brain is just filling in the gaps of how it believes it should be seeing them. And then, so yeah. And like everything we see is just we're making it up in our head. We don't even see what is really there. And so,
Correct. Correct. Yeah. So then, what you think and what you focus on becomes way more important because that's literally your brain is creating that from, the stimulation that it's getting from the outside world.
so cool. Thank you for sharing that. Love it. Yeah. Anyone else has any insights on that?
Well, I do have one thing. This goes back
Hmm.
years, but I remember one uh, example was they showed you a picture. I believe it was online, and it was like a seaside, like a landscape, and ocean and trees and mountains and all of that, and it looked beautiful, right? And then you scroll down and say, no, this picture's black and white, except for they put a little dot of color here, maybe one a little tiny here, a little tiny there. The rest of it, your brain filled it in. But actually, like 95% of this photograph was black and white. But if somebody asked you, came up to you and said, "Is that in color?" You would like swear at a stack of Bibles. Well, yeah, look at it. It's full color. It kind of reminds me. Another example might be about 10 years ago. About 10 years ago, they had that thing about that dress where some people saw the dress as white and gold, and then other people saw it as blue and black. And it became a viral thing. People go, no, no, it's white and gold, and like up in arms over it. And they brought it up on a TV show last week, and showed that In fact, it actually is blue and black. Um, it's just how different people's minds work with the background that was in the photograph and how it picked it up and filled in the rest. So yeah, it just reinforces it. But I tell you, when you look at that photograph, you would swear it was all full color because it's your brain just filling in all the pieces parts that it wanted to do. That was cool.
So cool. Yeah. And it's like it gets us to question what else we are filling in and making it mean and all that stuff based on our past,
Mhm.
where we learned it from. Thank you, Ken.
Absolutely.
Any other insights, anyone, or fun examples to share? All right. Who would like? Did you say anything, Jeanette?
No.
Who would like to read the next one?
Where
Number 21.
what page are we on?
About 130, 131, something like that.
131.
Mm-hmm.
And what number are we on page number 31?
Number number 21.
Number 21. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
I'll read. That's okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Number 21. We have internal representational systems, visual, feeling, auditory, smell, and taste, and they are used to determine our perception of the external world. So, are we just supposed to read one or two, or read one and
This one.
expound? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. If you have anything to share about that.
Yeah. So basically, one thing I learned in the course here in level one that was really amazing was each one of these. I always thought of memories as like visual because that's just I often experience things as pictures. But each one of these, like visual memories, feeling memories, auditory memories, smell memories, taste memories, all of these different representational systems are stored as memories, and um, it was really helpful for me to realize that each of these are a form of memories that are being stored. It really, because at times I would sit there in my first couple of sessions that I was doing. I did a couple sessions with Robert, and I was like, I don't have any memories. Like I can't remember anything here from my childhood or whatever. And when we started getting into like, okay, well, what feelings do you have from back then? What do you have any smells that mean anything to you? Is there any voices inside of your head or things you keep saying to yourself? Realizing that those were all different forms of memories that the body is sorting and remembering and storing and filing away was helpful for me to think of them all in terms of memories.
Definitely. Thank you. So many. And then also like thinking about in the light of what we just talked about, it's like even like the pictures that we see are kind of made up on what we believe. It's like, what is memory really? It's just
Believe,
something belief.
believing is seeing. It's not seeing is not believing. Whatever you believe, you will see. So believing is seeing. So whatever your belief is, you will see.
So interesting. Believing is seeing. Yes. Yeah. And then like if we believe we have to protect ourselves based on what happened past, the memory, it's gonna like hold inside of us in a way that we have to protect us.
It's going to create a world that you have to protect yourself from. You're going to constantly find things that are dangerous or that you need to be protected from. You know, it's going to give you what you believe. It's You're going to see what you believe. Like I always hear people say, seeing is believing, seeing is believing. And it's really, to me anyway, I found it's been the opposite way. It's whatever already exists in there is what will be projected out in your world, and that's what you will experience.
Yeah. That is so, so interesting. You know, just just like realizing all that's like, ooh, gives me the shivers, it's like, wow, all the stuff we've been seeing is actually what we're believing, and then we see it. It's so interesting. Anyone else would like to share anything? Hey, Susan.
Yeah, so this reminds me of a video I once watched. It had instructions before watching the video, and it told us to count how many shots. It's a basketball, some players on a basketball court. Watch how many shots this person makes, or how many passes the ball goes around. And then after watching it, it's like I counted all the passes. And then at the end, it says, did you see the gorilla, the man in the gorilla suit? And I'm like, what? And so I watched it again, and this full size human being in a big gorilla suit actually kind of walks between all the players and, very slowly. It's like, how did I not see that? I watched it a couple of times. It's like, how could I not see that when I was watching for the passing ball? It was, it wasn't just like this little person in the background, but this gorilla suited person kind of wove in and out in plain view, but the brain deletes what we're not looking for. So what we believe, we see. So very interesting.
Interesting. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. That's so interesting. Yeah. We choose to see what we want to see, basically, what we're looking for. Yeah, definitely. Anyone else? All right, next one. Pretty simple. Perception is learned. Hmm. So yeah, I mean, we could have learned it from our, caregivers, how to perceive things. And those are just perceptions, and perception is nothing like real or solid. It's just our perceptions, like the glasses, which colored glasses we put on. That's how we see the world. But we can just change those glasses anytime. Put some clears on or take the glasses off. Anyone else? Anything interesting about that? Perception is learned.
Well, that whole thing is like getting back into the believing is seeing type of thing. I had my vocal coach is like a master at all all of this stuff. He's never been trained in any of this, but his brain just sort of works this way. And we're in the middle of singing, he'll just stop me and say something like, "Is the house sitting on the foundation? Is it resting on the foundation, or is the foundation holding up the house?" And just from that different perception, it brings ease into your singing. If the house is resting on a foundation, the voice is at rest. But if the foundation is holding up the house, there's strain in it. And when you start talking in terms of those metaphors, those metaphorical perceptions, it brings a completely different, like instantaneous, different result in the physical body. Just by having that you could sit there and you could try to explain, let go of your muscles, let go, relax, breathe deeply. But when you start speaking to the subconscious mind in terms of these perceptions, and when you have certain perceptions will create certain physical or emotional or spiritual results. And so like the perceptions are like, it could be the smallest little change in perception, and it sets the whole thing completely different. Like the house is still resting on is the house resting on the foundation, or is the foundation holding the house up? One implies rest, one implies like struggle or weight or heaviness, and it gives a whole different command to the nervous system when you enter through those different doors of perception.
That's so interesting.
So
Yes.
those little tiny perceptions, it's like, is seeing believing or is believing seeing? Like it's the same word, it's just the order and syntax are changed around in that sentence, and one leads to a completely different experience because of the way that you've used those words. They create a different perception. It's a totally different, it's like hidden in plain sight of how, like how easy these changes are. That's why it's crazy how the utoptics can come in and change these huge issues, just because it just changes the perception and it releases the energy. It does it so fast. but those little perceptions are like the key to so much of it. It just a little change in a word, or a different order of that word. Like I heard somebody say once, like the dog bit Johnny, or Johnny bit the dog. It's a very same words, but it's a very different experience.
Yes, thank you. I love that. Yeah, definitely. And then that also we learn. We learn how to do that. It's just so much of it's learned, which is not, and it's not necessarily true. And we can change that perception anytime.
Absolutely.
Yes, definitely. Anyone else like to share anything about that? Not, we got point number 23. Who would like to read that? Sasha.
Okay. Our current problems are metaphoric expressions of our internal representations based on our old experiences, ideas, and beliefs, which are expressed physically.
Mhm. Would you like to share anything on that?
Well, going back to my class right now, we're um, critiquing a work of art. And it's interesting because it's we were put into groups and everybody kind of gives their opinion on what it is that they're seeing, right? My metaphoric expression or my internal representations have to do a lot with racism and classism and stuff like that. So when I saw the painting, that is basically what I saw, right? Like this individual who had absorbed the environment and had all this pain and all the scarring, and just the voice was like trapped because of environmental pressures in society and stuff like that. So that was my analysis of it. And then I go on to brunch with a friend, and just out of curiosity, she's not in the class, but she likes art. I'm like, what do you see? Right. And so what she saw is herself. She's in corporate America, she's a badass. She's a woman. And so she saw, even though, I mean, the painting, the guy's black, but hey, to each their own. Everybody sees their representation of who they are. She saw herself as not being able to speak, right? The oppression that she sees in corporate America just because, she's a woman, and, that's her struggle, right? So it's like everywhere that we go, it's like we're seeing our struggle in what we see, and we're dealing with that, and we're creating these ideas based on what it is that we see. And so coming back to what this says, it's like you feel that viscerally in your body, right? Like when I was seeing this, I felt that anger, going back to like the mirror neurons. It's like I felt that anger of this image, and it's a picture, but my body felt it physically. I felt it, right? And so did she. Like her face got mad. Like you could tell that she was like angry, and like felt like this injustice for her gender and stuff like that. So I just found that to be interesting and applicable to this.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, like I was just thinking, just like you said earlier, discipline your mirror neurons is, just noticing how we are actually like empathizing with that, eh, taking on that emotion as our own, but it's just a picture. And we do that with people around us, the situations. So it's like just watching, noticing ourselves and disciplining those mirror neurons. Definitely. Thank you. Anyone else would like to share anything on that? All right, then we got point number 24. Who would like to read that?
I'll read it.
Please.
The mind and body work as one because they are one. What affects the body also affects the mind, and what affects the mind also affects the body. I think that's interesting. Like one of the things in the book that was interesting about how the mind works, about how it gathers and it starts to combine. Um, I guess almost like a Zen diagram. Like Robert used the one example of like learning how to write. Like when you write out the word, you know, you write out your name. You don't go back and remember kindergarten of how do I write an A and then how do I write a B. It combines like how you're feeling with your memories, with all of these experiences, and it puts it in like a Zen diagram. It like pulls all those things into like one process, into like a normalization. And so like your body's working and it's constantly gathering all of this data and these references and proofs and belief systems and experiences, and it's like combining them and connecting them into one thing, and you call it writing. And then really there's like thousands or tens of thousands or millions of reference points and data that are all happening at exactly the same time. So that mind and body working as one, putting all these things together into one thing called writing, is actually a pretty miraculous process. But when you understand that that's how it works, you can like undo your problems in the same way, as by taking it out piece by piece until that all those disconnections are made and the problem collapses, like when the structure is removed.
That is a very cool way of looking at it, Jason.
Thank
It's
you.
because like, yeah, because, then you just take it out piece by piece, exactly what we're doing. It's
It's like
like
when
undoing the writing.
yeah, it's overwhelming when you think I've got like this huge problem. Like, look at how screwed up I am. Look at all this crazy stuff that I'm doing. Like, where do you even start? But when you get into it and you go like sensation by sensation, feeling by feeling, memory by memory, and you just start tapping away and you start changing and reframing those situations,
Mhm.
eventually you I'm not there yet, but maybe it will become normal again at some point.
We will one day.
One day.
But yeah, it's like if you think about it, can we like just unlearn how to write? Can we unlearn how to ride the bicycle if we just scratch the record enough?
Yep.
So if we could do that, perhaps we could just unlearn our problems and how we create those problems for ourselves,
Yeah, like
getting triggered. Mhm.
those problems are great successes. Like if you think about it, like reframing that and realizing like, oh, I'm really doing this, like this is a successful achievement, this problem. And when you realize you're doing things to successfully achieve it, you can change the inputs and you'll get a different output.
Yes, definitely. Love it. Thank you. Anyone else, anything you would like to share? We got point number 25. Who would like to read that? Anyone? Gary, thank you.
Okay. Memories seem real because they are accompanied by feelings and emotions. Well, that's a big old amen for that because you're like, but it's real. It's real. No, it's not real. That's been quite a learning adventure for that. I mean, that's taken me at least many minutes to get that one right in my body. I'm sorry, I can't speak English tonight. Okay. But anyway, yes, that's what I'm trying to say is that's something that it took a while to get ingrained as part of my psyche that, oh, it is not real. Come on, sister, and to try to get rid of those. But that's I I like that because it kind of puts things in perspective as to what's really happening. Okay.
Yeah, right. And sometimes we can just watch a movie like Robert gives an example, watching Jaws and having the fear of swimming in a lake, in a cold, frigid lake that there will be like sharks or crocodiles or whatever, because there's emotions involved in it and it becomes real. It was never real. It was just a movie. And if we can just see our, memories as just that, as just a movie, but then we're attaching all this emotion and this justification and this victimhood and this hurts and pains or happiness and gladness and whatever it is, but they're just a movie inside our mind. We can take apart and, release the emotion of the bad ones and we can add good, more better emotions to the good ones. We can do that in our mind. So that just kind of puts it in perspective. Yeah, thank you, Sherry. Anyone else? Anything, any other fun? Kenneth? Oh, you're talking to somebody. Cheers. Anyone else like to share anything? Hmm. All right, then we have the point number 26. Who would like to read? Susan.
Right. Memory is an active synthetic process. Therefore, you can change its meaning. So that synthetic, don't believe everything you feel. The feeling is what it makes it seem real, but it's not. The feeling, a memory is over. A memory is over. It's not real. It's synthetic. So if it's a synthetic process, so we can change the meaning. We can totally flip it.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. That's just made me think, so what is real? What's more organic? And that's just the present moment. So we're acting in the present moment from a synthetic past, which is really crazy.
Like I think it's whatever you focus on. Like in that moment, like I remember one time I was at a funeral and there was this person that was there that was like laughing in the background, and that I knew the person, and it's like everyone thought it was like super inappropriate or whatever. And I was talking to them after, and they were like thinking of like all these memories of the person who'd passed away. The person who'd passed away was very funny, and they were thinking of all of these like moments that they had had previously in life, and it was causing them to crack up a little bit. And so that person was just focusing in the same situation. They were focusing on something completely different, and most people would be like, no, the funeral, the death is real. Like that's really, we're here at a funeral. And that person was at the funeral and they were somewhere else in their mind creating laughter, and by what they focused on differently.
What they chose to make real.
That's what they chose to make real. Exactly. They chose to make it real.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, what you choose to make real. Thank you. Love it. Anyone else? If not, you can read the next point, number 27. Who would like to read? And if not, I'll read it. Um, okay. Memories are not you. They are a distorted viewpoint recorded neurologically in your brain. Memories are flexible and changeable. And that's what the whole work is about. Memories are flexible and changeable. And they're not us. We are not defined by our past memories. We can change that. That's just something that happened. We can change that. And also, if it happened, how did we record it? Is that what it really was? Or how we chose to record it to keep us safe? So if memories are not real, memories are not us. It's just a distorted, recorded viewpoint. So we can change it. They're flexible. They're plastic. Anyone else? Any other insight on that? They
I
can.
think, well, I think that's one of the most pivotal things to remember. But it's so easy to forget that. And so it, you have to become like masterful of remaining aware of that. If you remain aware of that, you can solve a lot of problems. And then also you can make a lot of changes because you can. It's like when you're in another state and then you forget that you have that power. That's why you're in the other state as well. There's some people that I just some courses with a long, long time ago. They got to be so masterful that not only could they do that with memories, but they could do it with dreams. They would be aware that they were dreaming and then decide, okay, where they wanted it to go and what they
Hmm.
wanted to do inside the dream while they were sleeping. I never quite got to that stage, but I often marveled at the ability to do that. Uh, and just one other thing, I kind of proved it. I had this memory, a key memory of a Christmas when I was like 10 years old. And one of my uncles filmed it, right? And I always believed it was a certain way. And I went, wait a minute, I got a copy of that. I went back and I watched it. It was completely different than how I remembered it, but it was on film. And film don't lie. And I watched it going, son of, it's like, yeah, it is different. So yeah, it's true.
That is so cool, certainly. And I like what you said about remember to remember.
Yeah, and especially I would say, at least the reason I say that it works for me is when you're doing a session, when you're in a session, if you remember to remember that you have the power to change things, it'll happen much more quickly. Um, and then against the resistance, and the resistance is only trying to hold on to like vapors and things that aren't really there. You
Yes,
know?
thank you.
So,
Yeah,
sense.
remember to remember, definitely. Yeah. Because, as you said, we forget when we're in a different state. It's like we just put it up in front of us, sticky note, whatever. Remember to remember.
You just get caught up in like whatever's going on at the moment.
Yeah, thank you. Love it. Anyone else? Now we got point number 28. Who would like to read? You, Sasha?
Since we operate from our inner perceptions, which are developed from our experiences, we have patterns, strategies, or certain ways of seeing, feeling, and hearing things. So this is fascinating because I had this lunch, well, it was like a dinner thing. I went on this app called Time Left, and you like meet like different people. And there was this guy there that had studied NLP, um, like it very extensively. He's just, I think he knows Robert, one of the founders of NLP and stuff like that. And so his whole thing was he was arguing that there are patterns to success, there are patterns to connecting, right? And so he says that, by the way that you listen to people, the language that they use, you could determine if somebody's going to be successful or if they're not, depending on different other criteria, right? But that brought up that whole thing of, yeah, we are a series of patterns, and where those patterns are going to take us, you know, uh, you could determine, whether you're going to be successful or not. So it's not really an idea of you can't be successful. It's more of an idea of, do you have the patterns? Are you cultivating the patterns that will make you successful? Right.
So interesting. And if that's a pattern, we can unlearn it. We can learn a new pattern.
Correct. Exactly. Yeah.
Like Tony Robbins says, success leaves clues. So, and that's their pattern. So if somebody's doing a certain kind of success, whether it's, making money, career, relationship, friendships, whatever it is, it's, see the people who are doing it in a successful way. And it's like, what can I learn from it? Model them. Yes, can. Thank you. Model them how they're doing it because it's just a pattern. They
Correct.
they learned it from somewhere. They had better teachers, and maybe they're not doing some other parts of their life in the perfect way, but they're doing this part. We can model those parts, those
Correct.
patterns. So yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I love that. We are a pattern. Anyone else like to share anything?
Yeah, with those patterns there, one of the interesting things too that I learned over the years was that I it was about sort of speed of implementation. So like I would often like I'd see a pattern that somebody was doing and I would be like, I'd recognize that was like, oh, that's really bringing them success or happiness or whatever they were whatever the pattern was leading to. But I was like really resistant to like adopting it because I felt like I had sort of a fixed personality, like, oh, that's part of their personality. And like I can't just, I had like a negative belief that I can't just change myself quickly, or I can't, I had like resistance to adopting these patterns. And over the years, as I see something now and I just immediately adopt it, like in 13 seconds, I'll like, yeah, that's what I do now. And it's like I don't have that resistance anymore where I see a pattern, I just immediately internalize it if it's something that I want, instead of taking like 5 years and thinking about it and reading about it. Like that was my old process until I eventually got to the point where I felt comfortable in internalizing the pattern. Like I'd think like, well, if I change so quickly, what are other people going to think about me? Or am I going to like seem like I'm crazy? Like I was this one way yesterday and then now I'm just totally different today. But it's like just constantly, as long as it leads to a better version of yourself and you're happy with it, it's bringing you to the success that you want, then that is such a huge thing right there, is how fast you implement the patterns. Like if you see somebody like a speech pattern, or you see a dietary pattern, or you see a thought pattern, you can just pluck it out of that other person's experience, and you can just like the matrix, like implant it right into yourself, and it speeds everything up so quickly once you finally get through that resistance and you just adopt the patterns quickly.
Yeah, that's very cool. So, Jason, what's your internal process of adopting that pattern super quickly? As you
So,
know, as you have let go of the resistance, so like what are the steps you do?
well, when I adopt it, like first, like I guess there's three stages to it. There's pattern recognition, then there's pattern
Mhm.
utilization, and then there's pattern, it leads to pattern creation. So first you have to just, the first step is recognizing it. You have to see, like you have to notice, like, I noticed like 20 years ago I wanted to make more money, and I started noticing like okay, well, who's already making money around me? And I found this uncle that I had, and I went and I like, it was so embarrassing. I like sat down in his office and had this like briefcase. I was like a teenager, and I was like, had a presentation like, oh, I want you to tell me how to be successful. And like he was just trying not to like laugh through his teeth. Like I was so cheesy. But like I recognized that he was doing something differently than everyone else. And that was the first step, was recognizing that, okay, there's a pattern here. He's doing something differently. And then once I recognize a pattern like that, I try to learn about it. Like I will ask questions. Like now I'm comfortable just to ask people like, oh, like, where did you learn to do that? Or, how long have you been doing XYZ? Or, if I were to try to do that right now, what are the three most important things you could tell me about that right now? I'll ask directly. But back then I would like study it and I'd read books about it and go to seminars and like hang out with other like-minded people, till eventually I could start using that pattern. And it's just like the piano. It's like after you learn enough songs, you just start creating your own songs. When you get to a certain point, you can create your own patterns. So it's like first recognizing it, and then like getting familiarizing yourself with it by like asking questions, or being around it, or watching movies, or reading books, or you just test driving the pattern and finding out whether the way that you're doing it works or not. And then eventually when you get to a certain spot, the best thing to do is just ask directly. Like people that are doing things that are successful are usually very complimented by the fact that you're interested in them. And when you ask questions and you listen to what they say, they usually spill the beans and give you everything right there. How, like they'll usually just tell you exactly like, this is what I do, like, and you can save like decades of time just by asking. But it's so intimidating to do that in the beginning. Like I remember just sweating bullets and like feeling like completely afraid, and then eventually you do it a few times and you learn, and you get a little bit of a swagger about yourself, and you get better at it, like you figure it out.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That's perfect. Yeah. I remember like in the past I used to be like feeling self-conscious, like oh, feeling like dumb that, oh, I have to ask that of somebody. I should know. So not feeling comfortable asking.
Dumb.
How do you do that? Tell me how you do that. So like I used to like ask Jason, like, tell me, Jason, how do you adopt them so quickly?
Yeah.
So it's
And
just,
then
just getting past ourselves.
the dumbest thing that you can do, if was such a thing, is not ask. Like, it really is dumb not to ask. It's like, I was dumb for decades. I should write a book called Dumb for Decades.
But
And it's like, but you feel, after you learn, you realize how easy it is just to ask, and you're like, oh, why wasn't I doing that all this time? Like, it's so easy just to ask, but it takes some courage. It takes it you have to put yourself out there, and people will react different ways, and that's their business. None, move on.
yeah, because life is too short to, just not do what we want to do, not adopting a better behavior that's more useful to us. So yeah, just
Yes.
creating new and better patterns. All right.
Don't you don't you
Mhm.
think too, sometimes we don't want to ask because that little pride thing happens there. It's like, well, my gosh, you're supposed to know that. I mean, I finally got when I was teaching, I would just ask students, I have no idea what you're talking about. What did you just, because I think sometimes life becomes easier to maneuver when you have no fear about asking. You're not supposed, no one is supposed to know everything in the whole wide world. And if they do,
Exactly.
wow.
No, so true. Definitely. Yeah. Just asking, and humility goes a long ways. It helps us learn and become a better person. Yeah, I definitely totally learned that lesson. So yes. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. All right. Anyone else? Hey, Ken.
Footnote on that. That's very wise. I did that a lot when I was younger. I would ask older, more successful people two things really, two major things. Like, what do you think? How would you approach this, or what would you do? Right? And they would tell me, and then I'd write that down and do that. Then I also asked them, the question is, okay, in this situation, what would you absolutely not do? And that was also very important because they had already made the mistakes, right? And mistakes are very expensive. So if this very successful person tells you, whatever you do, don't do this, right? You listen to that and don't do that. And then you've saved yourself so much grief, you know? So I would ask both. And then, after, of course, the person was vetted, but a lot of the people that I was talking to, they were pretty much, they were like world famous. And so you figured, they ought to know. Um, and but you'd be surprised, even people like that, they're happy to share. You know, uh, there's only one out of maybe 15, maybe. But that's just the way he was with everybody. And that's what another thing that you learn is that if somebody is treats you a certain way, it's not you, it's them. They treat everybody that way. And but most of the people would like to help. And so those two things, like, what do you think I should do, and what do you think I shouldn't do, and then write both down. It
Like
works.
that.
Good point.
Yeah.
So thought I'd share.
Thank you. Yeah, that's really good. Definitely. And it just give me an idea is like when we are doing and tapping and working on ourselves, this would be a really good question to ask our unconscious mind. So if you could go to somebody who is an expert on doing this in a better way, just unconsciously, like who, because we have all the answers, we have learned, read the books, watched the videos, how to do this, but we keep doing that same pattern again. Like if you could go after we heal that pattern where we learned it from, etc., etc., we took that pattern apart, this dismembered it, whatever. Like who could you go to right now to learn how to do it better? Just get that message from our unconscious mind, write that down, start rehearsing and practicing it. So I think I'm going to incorporate that into my sessions. I think that, thank you. That's a really, really good thing to always keep that in mind. Yeah.
And one other thing to add to that, that just goes the extra mile. If it's something really important that you need to know, those are amazing questions. What to do and what not to do, and then ask three people that are all successful and see what the parallels are. Sometimes they'll say completely different things, and sometimes they'll say whatever you do, don't do this, and then the other person you ask says to do that exact same thing that the other one says not to. So it's great to get some perspective too, and ask that, like, of a couple of different people, or a few, or as many as you can. And
Yeah.
it's like, and you'll tend to find that there's um whatever, if you ask five people and four of them are saying the same thing and all four of them are very successful at what you want to do, and then that's probably the way you want to lean. But what not to do is so like that I wish I would have asked that a few times. What not
Yeah.
to do.
But
Yeah.
most of the people you find too, that even people that I would talk to that were very famous, are very humble. And a lot of what they studied a lot too, but they own one other thing that they believed was is that they had were also lucky for some reason. They were inspired by other people as well. They were inspired themselves. Then also they were lucky. It could be meeting the other person and that other person and that other person to form a group of people that did great things, right? At the right time, the timing, coming together at the right time, and then staying together no matter what, and forming a bond that made things very strong. It was all kinds of things, but I found that most of them that I talked to, I didn't find much distinction per se. Um, you pretty much everybody was on the same was on the following the same path, so to speak, and that's why they became very successful. Uh, they're all very decent people, humble, thought they were lucky, appreciated it, and it hung together with trusted people, no matter what, underlying no matter what. Yeah, time time works everything out too. So
Yeah, I like that. And then also, what if believing that you're lucky is a pattern and it's a
yeah,
belief, right? You believe that, and then you'll be, you know, doing, what the lucky people would do, like, noticing the right people, taking advantage of the right time and doing the right thing at the right time.
right, right. But
Yeah.
it surprised me, and that's a pattern that I saw, is that most of them said that in just in conversation. Well, I was lucky I met so and so, or we were lucky that this happened, blah blah. And like it just came up every time. And it's like you kind of remember that. Um, because these people, if I mention them, they are well known. Still are. A lot of them are down at the museum. Yeah, most of them are. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, this is it was quite an experience when you talk to people on that level, uh, and uh, and you get a lot of good advice. Always try to do that, and you can't start. There's no such thing as start too early. So, Jason, if you went and saw your uncle, he's you started early. That's good. He's probably very proud of you now if he's alive.
Absolutely. He is very much so. he
Yep.
his
Yeah.
biggest his biggest problem was that he said that people, I could talk about him for a long time, but he said that people come to him all the time and ask him about money, because he was very extremely successful. He had all these nightclubs and restaurants and hotels and all this stuff. Like, he was doing really well. And he said people come to him all the time, and then the first second, like, then they fall off the map. Like, the next week, they never come back. They never. But he gave me all of these different things to do. Where he told me to go apply for jobs that were like, I applied for like jobs as like a CEO when I was like 18. Like, I was like, it was ridiculous. I applied for a job as a bus driver, and I had a criminal record. I knew they were going to pull up my record. And he's like, I want you to go in there and do all these hard things, because if you're willing to do these hard things and stick with it, you're showing me you have the right attitude. And so like he he thinks that he's very proud of me because I just kept coming back relentlessly and doing all the things that he said, and it wasn't easy. But he said most people will come and ask, but they don't follow through and they don't stick with it when it gets hard, and they don't go and I'd like challenge him, and he would say, you know, are you coming? He'd just start yelling at me and say, like, did you come here to tell me what's going on, or did you come here to learn from me? And then I would just shut up, and I would, he was a harsh guy, but I learned some great lessons from him.
Well, sometimes you have to be harsh, uh, Ross. But it kind of reminded me of this son of this very wealthy individual, and uh, he would give him the hardest jobs that there were, the worst, the really most difficult. And I pull him aside after about 5 years of watching this, going, Mark, you always get the toughest jobs. Your dad gives them to you. You know why? He goes, no. And I go, because he wants you to learn. And so in a couple more years, considering everything that you've done, there won't be anything that you won't know, and nothing will be a problem because you'll already know how to fix it. That's why he's doing it.
Yep.
You got to do the hard stuff to learn. That's just how it works. Pretty much.
So the pattern utilization comes in. You got to utilize that pattern. Use that
Absolutely.
hard. Yes. And just Jason did that, He recognized, a lot of people recognized it, but you utilized it over and over and over again until it became you.
Yep.
So yeah. So yeah, that was really good discussion. Thank you, everyone. Lot of good things to learn. I could just watch these over and over again and good stuff. So next week, we will continue with the healing attitudes. And then I have a request for you all. We're kind of coming to the end of the level 1 book. There's still a lot of good stuff, but think about it. What can we add to make it better? Like if we just start over,
I
or is
I
there
have a
anything else?
question for you, Shristi.
Yes.
Could we go through, like, is it possible to go through and start, like, there was something in the old, I don't know if it's in the new like the new app that's here. Like there was the Talent MLS and then the new one that just came out. But there's something about like the action plan of like what we need to know to get to our level 1. I'm not sure if you've covered that already, but it would be great to go over like all of the specific things that we're going to be like tested on, and what like kind of the cumulative things that we need to know and how that process works. Like that would be great if we could do something like that.
We can certainly talk about that. Yes. An action plan is it's like a separate book, it's just like a daily ritual, how we can kind of stay with this level 1 stuff, just how to implement that in our life, make it a part of our daily life,
Yeah.
utilizing that pattern. But yeah, we can talk about, what it takes, like the whole, basically all the principles we've been talking about, those would be tested in the oral test, the competency evaluation and stuff. Yeah. So let's talk about that next time, perhaps.
Okay. Thank you.
Or after we kind of go through and finish some of the principles, or maybe even just finish the healing attitudes, then we can talk about the level 1 testing. That would be cool. Sasha, did you have a question?
Yeah, so I just recently joined, and obviously it sounds like I did at the end. Does this like repeat itself, or do I just like look at the recordings? Like, how does it, like, do you go back and start at the beginning? Like, how does it work?
This is the first time we're going through it. So that's what, like, as we finish this, what else can we add? So just I wanted to ask all of you, like, would you like to something else that would be good to kind of go through, have daily, weekly discussions, or we could go through, start the book over because there's more and more new people coming, and we could add something else because it's always good to talk about and immerse ourselves in these principles and concepts. But is there anything else we could add, perhaps, like maybe like I don't know, tapping or anything else we could add to it. So think about it. Yeah. So what can we do to make this even better? Yeah. I feel like they're really good principles, and the more every time we talk about it, there's better and better insights and wisdom comes through. So I love doing this.
I mean, I think for me, that's why like I make it a point to be able to make it to this because it's like discussing it and more to the point, like I know my perspective of it, but it changes depending on, like especially like last week, it was interesting because I was going through a whole bunch of mommy issues, and like everybody was talking about it, and so I learned from everybody's perspective, on it. So like that's what I find valuable. It's that I don't have to figure it out. It's like there's a collective and seeing the different points of view. I get to see all of the different ways that this can apply, not only to myself, but to other people that I want to help with this.
Yes. Yeah, I love this as well. I mean, it helps me too, and I hope it helps everyone because I love doing it because the more we talk about it and discuss, everyone else's perspectives and insights just helps us and help each other. So it's really lovely. I love it. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
It was really good to see you all. See you next week, and we will continue on the healing attitudes and let's talk about the level one testing.
Thanks,
Okay.
guys. See you later. Bye bye.
See you later. Bye. Have a good week.